Hey everyone. This is definitely a very out of left field story time from my normal content, but I'm gonna do it anyway since I reached a huge milestone regarding this topic around a year ago, and I'm now able to finally be content with my collection of Zuzu pets. Also, the resurgence of the toy line with the new Zuzu City lineup is going on right now, so I figured I'd finally release this video to celebrate that. Yeah, this script was written in like February, but with my job and everything else going on around me, I haven't had time to make this video. However, I'm doing it now. For those asking, what's a Zuzu pet? They're a line of electronic toy hamsters that run around and make noises. They had a lot of different little play sets you could connect with others and create a giant habitat with, clothing you could dress them up in, and more little things. They were super popular in the early 2010s, but the original line of Zuzu pets were sadly discontinued in 2013. They were re-released in 2017, but we don't talk about those. Recently, a new line called Zuzu Aquarium was released last year, marking the return of the Zuzu pets after so long. They also finally released the hamsters this year too, under the name Zuzu City. There's a few all-new characters being released, so I'm gonna have to snag my favorites of that bunch. Anyways, now that I've informed you on what a Zuzu pet is, on to the main story. It might be a bit scrambled, as the bulk of this all happened when I was a tot, and some of it's just chunks of Zuzu pet history, but I hope it makes sense nonetheless. When I was like 6 or 7, I saw a commercial one day for something called a Zuzu pet, and I was immediately hooked. I begged my parents to get them for me for Christmas, but since they were the newest, hottest toy, they had no luck at our local Toys R Us. So the task was placed in my grandma's hands. Unlike my parents, she was actually able to secure me quite a handful of the playsets, and 3 of the currently existing 4 hamsters: Mr. Squiggles, Num Nums, and Pipsqueak. Originally, she had only picked me up Pipsqueak, but decided to go back and get me the other 2 a couple days before Christmas. My 4th Zuzu pet was Patches. She was included with the starter kit available at the time, and would later be succeeded by Yo-Yo and in some countries, Hank. At the book fair for my 2nd grade year, I had picked up a Zuzu Pet storybook called Meet the Zuzu Pets. While reading, I encountered a very unfamiliar Zuzu pet named Rocky, an all-black hamster with gray accents. His inclusion confused me because at the time there were only 9 known Zuzu pets, 4 of which I had at the time, 4 I was getting for Easter, and Chunk, the last one, for my birthday. A month or so later, I was browsing ToysRUs.com and came across the news section. That's where I found out that a new wave was coming out soon, including the aforementioned Zuzu pet Rocky. He was to be released alongside 3 others named Moo, Spotty, and Tex. I told my parents about them and waited. One day, when I got home from school, my dad had a surprise for me for getting good grades. He pulled out a Toys R Us bag and proceeded to reveal what was inside. Inside was Rocky, Tex, and Spotty. I actually cried tears of joy upon receiving them, and Rocky is still one of my favorite Zuzu pets to this day. His fur is so soft, too, like a lot softer than my other zoos, oddly enough. I can also remember that the Zuzu babies had come out around this time as well, and so did the DS game. I remember I wanted it so bad that my dad ended up pre-ordering it for me. The version I got came with a Zuzu baby named Baxter, a blue and yellow Zuzu pet, and the first of his kind to be blue. One day, when I got home from school, my dad had also picked up for me the Zuzu Pet Spiral Slide, Moo, and 5 of the existing 6 Zuzu babies, which didn't include Baxter since he was a special case. Now, my dad may seem like a cool person for getting me all those Zuzu pets, but that's just one good layer wrapped in a really bad beefy 5-layer burrito. I'll probably make a video delving more into this stuff someday, but this one I'll talk about now because it directly involves a Zuzu pet. So, it was my 8th birthday, and my dad, my little brother, and I were all on our way to Cabela's. I brought Winky, my favorite Zuzu pet at the time, along with me for the trip. As mentioned in the past on this channel, I am an autistic individual who develops deeper connections with inanimate objects like plushies or game consoles over most people that have come in and out of my life. My dad insisted I keep Winky in the car, and I didn't want to. I wanted him to come in with me. He said no, that's final, and on the way in, I started to tear up about it. My dad quickly took notice to this and kept prying about why I was crying. He proceeded to ask if it was about me having to leave Winky behind, and I said yes. Instead of doing something a normal parent would do, like explain why it was safer for Winky in the car or let me go back to get him, he dragged my brother and I back to the car, yelled at us when we were out of earshot of other people, And as we pulled out of the parking lot, he grabs Winky from the back seat and proceeds to stomp on him as I'm screaming for him to stop. He then pulls over and says he's going to run Winky over, so I start to get even more upset and wail more. At this point, my little brother started wailing with me, which is what I think caused him to stop. He still didn't calm down, though, and kept, quote-unquote, thanking me for ruining the trip over, quote-unquote, that piece of shit, meaning Winky. Other than my 14th birthday, where I found out my crush at the time, Springtrap, liked one of my friends, my 8th birthday is one of, if not, my worst birthday so far. As a side note, Winky survived this ordeal, and I still have that specific Winky to this day. I never got a replacement, and while for years I blamed Winky for the event, I have since learned that it wasn't his fault. It was my abusive dad's for not handling the situation like a normal human being. I love my poor, traumatized little Oreo hamster. Shortly after the Winky event, I had seen a teaser for something called a Kung Zoo. It looked like Zuzu pets that were more geared towards boys. While the toy line as a whole was made for anyone regardless of gender, these ones looked specifically geared towards boys. I remember upon seeing them, I didn't think they were all too special, all except Stonewall, the very first Zuzu pet with blue markings. I remember I had received Yama, Rivet, and Draco from a couple friends I had that year, and one day while at Walmart with my dad and brother, we came across a huge Kung Zoo stand. I remember being able to find the 5 I needed, and I clearly remember the Stonewall I picked up was the very last Stonewall that was available there. Every other Kung Zoo there was the other 7, so I definitely lucked out that day. At the time, when a lot of the other Zuzu pets started to come out, things like the Wild Bunch, Rockstars, etc., one Zuzu pet stood out to me above the rest at the time. Carly. She was a mostly pink and orange tie-dyed hamster with a peace sign heart as a back symbol. I remember keeping up with the Zuzu Pets blog and saw Carly was getting released soon, but as a Build-A-Bear exclusive. I was dejected since I didn't know if there was a Build-A-Bear nearby. Turns out the localish mall had one inside, and one night my dad took my brother and I there, and I got Carly. Christmas of 2010 was upon us, and by now there had been over 50 different Zuzu Pets released. One who really stood out to me, more so than Carly did, was Sophie, a blue tie-dyed hamster. If you couldn't tell, my favorite color was blue back in the day. Another one who caught my eye was Shamrock, a vibrant green hamster, and the first green hamster of all of them. I knew I needed to have both. Christmas comes up, and my grandma comes over with like 12 Zuzu Pets in tow. One, she said, had to be opened last. I was banking on it being Sophie. I opened all the others and proceeded to open the last one, finding not Sophie inside, but Shamrock. I actually got more excited about her because I wasn't expecting her. I didn't even think she was released at that point. I would later on get Sophie, but Shamrock is and will forever be my favorite Zuzu pet of all of them. I can delve more into that aspect soon. Zuzu Princess was another branch off of the ever-growing Zooniverse. This set originally only featured 2 hamsters, being Princess Snowcup and Prince Dashington. I remember seeing them both at Walmart and getting them both. Another branch of the Zooniverse that I didn't really like the idea of at first was the Zuzu Puppies. Now they were getting creative, and in my little kid mind, the Zooniverse was growing past its capacity. I could tolerate the Wild Bunch, as they were mostly based off woodland creatures like rabbits, raccoons, and squirrels. But dogs? Really? I also held the same beliefs about Zufari, the final Zooniverse branch to be released here in the States. I did wind up getting some puppies and the Safari ones eventually, though. Soon, the Zuzu Pets even got an animated movie based off them. It was called Quest for Zoo. I wanted to watch it so badly, but my parents started to claim I was quote-unquote too old for Zuzu Pets. Keep in mind, I was 9. I hold the belief that you can never be too old for something you love, but of course, my parents don't understand that. So, something that might shock some or not is that I'm very into brightly colored things. Zuzu Pets were no different, so when I saw the commercial where there were many vibrant colored Zuzu Pets introduced to the roster, I knew I had to get them. Especially one being Merit. She is a color block style hamster with a smiley face for a symbol. I knew when I saw her I needed her. My grandma and I looked for her a couple times at Walmart but couldn't find her. It wasn't till one day when my mom and I went to New Jersey to visit her that when I was over she pulled out a bag with Zuzu Pets in it and one of them was Merit. Unfortunately, I can't remember what the other 3 were to save my life, but I'll never forget that as the day I got Merit. My grandma was an absolute angel. Christmas of 2011 was the final Christmas where I received an influx of just Zuzu Pets as gifts. At this time is when I really started to get into Pokemon, so my main priority on my wish list to St. Nick was Pokemon cards. Just Pokemon cards. My parents and my grandma obliged this request, but my Nana and Grandpa did not. They did get me a small amount of cards, but most of what they brought over ended up being Zuzu pets. There were like 20 of them. I was content with them, but I had mentioned that I didn't want Zuzu pets anymore after this Christmas. Little did I know, that would be a pretty big mistake when it came to completing my collection. The year is now 2012. During a trip to my Nana and Grandpa's old house in New Jersey, I come across a bag full of Zuzu pets they planned to give me, but didn't because I had quit collecting them. They did say, however, I could pick one to keep before they shipped the other ones to my younger cousins in Indiana. It was mostly a bunch of Zuzu puppies, which again was a line I didn't care too much about, but there was a needle in this haystack. Casey. Casey is a monochromatic purple hamster with a cupcake for a symbol. I had wanted her since her reveal, so I snatched her up as my choice. May I also mention there was 3 Zuzu pets that had appeared on checklists that never saw a release. Boo, Snowball, and Chewy. There is a picture of a real-life Boo being held by a little girl at the Zooniverse tour, but other than that, there are no recorded cases of a real-life Boo, Chewy, or Snowball. I had, however, bought a Diesel a year or so back, who I planned to turn into Boo, but haven't got around to it yet, unfortunately. In 2014, I had suddenly been interested in Zuzu pets again, and this is when I had found out the line was discontinued. Saddened, I turned to eBay to look for new Zuzu pets, and this is where I finally got Diesel and Yo-Yo. This is also where Shamrock started to emerge as my favorite Zuzu pet. Before this, I honestly forget who my favorite was, but it wasn't Shamrock. And she started to become my favorite because I would take her everywhere, I'd bring her outside with me, and she kind of was like the mascot of my original YouTube channel, but we'll get into that. So I turned to eBay to look for new Zuzu pets, and this is where I finally got Diesel and Yo-Yo. I had also decided, with the resurgence of my love for zoos, I'd pursue an old YouTube dream. Being heavily inspired by Super Mario Logan, I began to make videos with my plushies, my zoos, and whatever else I had to build my cast of wacky characters. These videos still exist to this day, but I will at some point, whether it's before or after this video, be delisting them from the public eye, along with probably my entire channel from the time. It's very cringe, and yes, we're all cringe as kids, but I kinda don't want those videos out there anymore, save for a few exceptions. Back then, my most wanted Zuzu pet was Luigi, because my mom's side of the family has Italian ties, and I wanted a Zuzu pet that represented part of my culture. However, the only place I could ever find him was on the UK eBay. While searching for Luigi, I had come across some Kung Zoos that I had never seen before. Jammer, Io, and Dogmart, to name a few. That Christmas, I was super lucky to receive all the Kung Zoos I just mentioned, and Luigi. After that, I started searching for more regional exclusives. I ended up getting most of the Kung Zoos back then, but others I know I'll never be able to obtain and were impossible to find. The one on the forefront of my mind when I think of this is Zaza, the Zufari tiger. I've seen and known people who own her, but I never got her myself and probably never will, unfortunately. The year is now 2018, and by this point I had all the Kung Zoos released outside the US except for 2, Abrams and Cold Space. While at a friend's birthday party, I was searching eBay and I happened upon a bundle listing of Kung Fu hamsters and playsets on the Australian eBay. I swiped to see which hamsters came with it and nearly choked on the soda I was drinking. Among the 5 in the lot, both Abrams and Cold Space were there. I messaged the seller at lightning speed to ask if I could get these 2 individually, and my lucky star shined that day because the seller said yes. Getting those 2 completed my Kung Fu collection. So, remember how I mentioned regional exclusives? There is a quartet of Zuzu pets that are very elusive and were released in a very small number only in Sweden and countries surrounding it. Those 4 are Tulip, Meadow, Moppet, and Pounce. One day, a friend of mine was curiously browsing the German eBay and came across a lot that had Pounce in it. Taking a huge risk as I wasn't sure if they'd ship it to the US, I placed a bid and prayed nobody else found it. I ended up winning the lot, and again, my lucky star shined bright and the seller was willing to ship it to the US. To say I was ecstatic would be an understatement. I was so happy to have Pounce. She became the mascot of my old ZooTube account, actually. Speaking of that, I had officially joined a very niche side of YouTube that was purely for Zuzu pet content called ZooTube. Here I would meet 2 people, Ryder, who I'm still friends with to this day, and Jeffrey, who I have since lost contact with. Ryder is also probably the biggest face of ZooTube at the moment currently. I honestly admire his passion for them. However, when I first met Jeffrey, Ryder and him were constantly at each other's throats, honestly over the dumbest things. Ryder would win an auction, a public auction, for a certain Zuzu pet, and Jeffrey would absolutely lose his shit. Ryder one day decided to reach out, though, and we became quick friends, and I also realized Jeffrey was kind of being a clown freaking out over someone winning a public auction. Though eventually I had my eye on a regional exclusive zoo, and having to save money for a date I was going on with Yandere Dev from my ex's Storytime series, I was unable to get the Zuzu pet, and Ryder got it instead, which at the time did piss me off. So we stopped being friends, and I eventually left the Zuzu Pets community altogether for a while. Finally, in 2020, I decided to come back, having made amends with Ryder and just wanted to discover my passion for them again. I was also huge into Webkins at the time, and fun fact, I became a huge face in that community because of how many pets I had registered on my account, but that's a story for another time. Anyways, I incorporated my Webkins into these Zuzu Pet videos too, and once again, Pounce was my mascot. Though the bliss would not last long because of another person in the Zuzu Pets community who's named Nicholas. He has gone by many names in the community, but his most prevalent two are Zuzu Pets Love and Nicholas Zuzu Pets. Because of him, I took a really big hiatus from my Zuzu Pets YouTube channel, and unfortunately, in the summer of 2021, inevitably decided to leave once again. And this time, it was permanent. I've not been back on ZooTube since, but Ryder has encouraged me to give it another shot someday. So maybe I'll upload some of those videos here, or create a new spin-off channel. We'll see. From 2021 to 2023-ish, I had no interest in Zuzu Pets and frankly detested them. So much so that my friendship with Ryder was affected and we almost stopped being friends again because I just didn't want to hear about Zuzu Pets anymore. Looking back, that was incredibly unfair to him. Even if he were into Homestuck, the worst thing ever created in my opinion, even worse than Sonic, I should have given him the freedom to talk about whatever he wanted with me, or kindly try to coax the conversation in a different direction instead of losing my shit. Last year, I decided I'd give Zuzu Pets one last chance. I had been in the Zuzu Pets Discord server ran by Ryder for a while, but I wasn't very active. It wasn't until Ryder showed me something that my interest in them finally came back. So, remember how I said my collection was never completed until this year? Well, it's because of a certain Zuzu pet. Meadow. I had wanted her ever since I discovered her, and could never find her myself. The one time I did find her, the seller cut all contact with me after discussing shipping costs, so unfortunately I didn't get her then. Ryder had made a promise to me to get me Meadow if he ever saw her for sale, and that he did. I received my Meadow around New Year's this year, and finally, my collection is complete. I will still accept new members, like the Wrinkles Ryder has for me, but I consider my collection complete, and Meadow is the crown jewel of it. This year, Zuzu City was revealed, which brought back the main four hamsters and a couple of their old friends. Previously, Zuzu Aquarium had been revealed, but I wasn't really into them except Butch the Shark and the one Rainbow Stingray guy. Very recently, new ones have been revealed, and they're all new characters. If I wasn't leaving my job, I'd make it my mission to get them all, but I'm going to have to be selective with which ones I get, because once I leave my job, I need to be very conservative with my savings until I get another job, which may or may not be for another 3 to 4 months while I work on myself. This is assuming I don't continue to boycott the company, though, because Sepia, the company who makes Zuzu Pets, was caught using AI multiple times for their stuff, and as an artist, that sickens me. I did see that they released new webisodes, though, which are not AI generated, so I have to check those out at some point. Well, that marks the current checkpoint of my Zuzu Pets collecting journey. After collecting them on and off for 15 years, I could say it paid off in the end. It took me a very long time, but it was worth it to finally have what I consider a quote-unquote complete collection. This video was supposed to go out a while ago as mentioned in the beginning, but once again my job has been preventing me from doing much of my hobbies at all, including but not limited to making videos for YouTube. While I'm leaving my job very shortly, within 3 weeks from posting this video, up to, like, about a month and a half from posting this video, I'm going to use that time I'll be jobless to improve upon myself with my art, my physical figure, and my fears, so I have no idea how many videos I'll make during that time. Anyways, thanks for watching, and try to avoid getting sick this holiday season. See ya!